I do like to preach. And there's one thing that I learned early after coming to Africa some 32 years ago. I heard a statement made that said this: I don't have very much to say. Have you heard people say that?
Yes.
What does that mean? What is the true meaning of that? It means I have a whole lot I want to say to you today. Not so. So I should say I don't have very much to say, but I need to take that another step further and to say this. I am not the greatest person to speak about leadership, specifically about leadership. Part of the reason is I am more concerned about being a leader than talking about how to be a leader. Okay? That's a little different. I was telling Pastor before service as we were sitting in his office that I believe that function is much more important than title. Let that sink in a moment. Function is much more important than title. These glasses that I am holding in my hand today, I can call them glasses. But if they sit where they are at now, they are not functioning.
Okay.
I don't have eyes up there. Even though sometimes we tell our children we have eyes in the back of our head, we know we really don't have them there, even though we can look. But if these glasses remain here, then they are useless until they move down here and begin to serve a function to help me to see better. So you may be called a deacon, you may be called a teacher, you may be called anything, but unless you begin to operate, unless you begin to function in what that title has given you, then you're very much, I'm sorry to say, you're worthless. Somebody get with me now. So if you're only living by the title and you're not functioning, you're not performing anything, therefore, what is your business for even having the title?
Wow. That's good.
I think I can leave it at that. Let me just say, I want to talk to you this morning a little bit about my own experiences. I want to talk to you about the experiential part of leadership that I have hopefully developed into. I will tell you that I was born at a very early age. How many of you were born at a very early age? Well, of course, every one of us. If we were not early, we wouldn't be born. I was born in the state of Oklahoma. That is right in the middle of America. It's really not known for very much. Maybe some cowboys. We have some oil production there. But most people, when they think of America, they think of New York or California or something like that that seems to somehow be popular. Oklahoma is not that. So I was very much, can I say, a normal kind of a kid. My grandfather was a pastor. On my mother's side was her father. He pastored from somewhere in the 1930s. Was one of the original pastors within the Assemblies of God in that area. I grew up in the little church in a place called Jones, Oklahoma. Jones is a name that is so common. People have that name, places are called such. It's so common. There's nothing special about it. When I was a small boy, I was very shy. People would not know that today. But back then, I was so shy that if a visitor would come to my house, I would go behind my mother, behind her dress, and I would hang on so people couldn't even see me. That's not a typical response of a leader. Okay? I'm telling you, I was normal. I was shy. My father was a man who did not even finish his high school education because he wasn't a very book intelligent man. He was very smart, but not especially with books. He had a job, but his job was to work in a warehouse. Maybe driving a forklift or something. It wasn't the president of any company. It wasn't the director. It was nothing like that. It was very normal. And we were relatively poor when I was growing up. I can remember the days that when it was time for Christmas. Christmas time, we try to do nice things. Have a nice meal. Give some gifts. Do things like that. Is that correct? Yes. As a small boy, I can remember when my parents were sitting in the other room and somehow I opened the door when they were preparing my Christmas present. It was one of these trucks, you know, the boys like to push around. It was a dump truck or a timber truck. And they were repainting it because it was the cast-offs of someone else's toys that they got rid of. I was very happy with that truck. In fact, I probably, if I would sort through the things at my mother's house, it would probably still be there. Wow. And I hope to find it one day. My mother's now passed, and I'm still trying to clean up around her place, and I don't even know where those things are at. But one day, I will probably find it, and I'll be so happy. But what I'm telling you is, I did not get born, and there's a kind of a statement in America, I don't know if we use it here or not because I've never heard it, but I did not have a silver spoon or a golden spoon to my mouth. Simply meaning I was not privileged. I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of wonderful things that happened to me as a child. So I'm talking about experiences now. I continued to grow. I was an average student. I did okay with my grades in grade school, high school, and then I continued on and was wanting to be, at one time I was going to think I would be a veterinarian, take care of animals, because growing up, I raised pigs. And so I enjoyed that type of thing. But you know, God, when He has His plans for you, you have to listen. I was not a bad kid, but I was really not listening to what God wanted for me. I was doing good things, and so on. And then I had another dream of my own. Not a dream in the night, but just something I thought I wanted to do. Because my father worked for this company called General Motors. He was working in the warehouse. He was moving car parts here and there and doing things. General Motors, you know, they're the people who make Chevrolets and Buicks and these big cars in America, and sometimes I know they're here as well. And so I said, okay, I want to work for them, but I don't want to be a warehouse guy. I want to be the president of General Motors. The top CEO, or the managing director, or whatever you want to call it. So I began to aspire a little bit more. So I went to university. I was studying business management because I knew if you're going to be one of those people, you have to have these studies and do what. So as I was doing that, I was involved in some campus ministries and was serving God. Maybe I wasn't following what He wanted for my life, but I was still serving Him. So as I was there, I began to feel this nudging of the Holy Spirit. There was a desire that was coming in me, not for ministry, but for drawing closer to God. And how many of you know if you're going to be a leader within the church, you need to be close to God? I did not know what was being prepared for me, but there was a drawing there. And so I began to say, Lord, what is it that I should do? How can I draw closer to you? Because I'm very practical about things. You know, you can think about them, but there are things you have to do. As a leader, you may have some ideas in your mind, but after you have those ideas, it is necessary to take the steps to get to the destination. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. So you have to do that. So I began to in my own mind, say, what must I do? What steps must I take to draw closer to God? And so, maybe with the prompting of the Holy Spirit, but in myself at that time, because I was trying to think and make these plans, I decided, here's what I can do. I can go to Bible college. Okay? Now, I have to understand, let me give you a little history of a lot of our Bible colleges in America. They have some areas where that you can do some certain training in business or to be a teacher or whatsoever, in addition to the Bible training. And so usually it's only for 2 years, then you have to go to a different type of university. So I'd only been in university for a while, in another university studying business. So I said, okay, fine. I know I can only have a total of 2 years before I go to the higher level of studies. So I will go to this Bible college to put myself in the environment of where the Bible is being taught, where people are praying, where there are chapel services, where there's all of these things, so that I can draw closer to God. I will go there 1 year, and then I will go back to this higher level university. I went. I made all the preparations, did everything necessary, and then I took the step. Remember, you can't just have an idea. You must take the steps to go forward. So I took those steps. I went there, and one of the things that we often did was on a particular night, I believe it was a Thursday night, at 10 p.m. You know, I'm an old man now, and I like to be in bed by 10 p.m. Anybody else with me? You want to be in bed at least by that time? I need a lot of sleep to maintain this body. But that was the time we started a prayer meeting every Thursday night. We had been doing this for a while. And this particular night, I did not tell you anything that happened because I'm sure there was a devotion. There was a few things like this that took place ahead of time. But at the end, as we were praying, I was actually sitting down on the floor because there were no chairs in this place where we were meeting. It was just the opening in one of the dormitories, and we were just sitting there, and maybe someone was standing leading in some worship or some songs or some devotion or something, but I know I was sitting on the floor. We began to pray. Most of the guys, because this was a male dormitory, most of the guys had prayed for a while and then they had gone back to their rooms to prepare for the next day and sleep, shower, whatsoever. But there was about 3 or 4 of us who were still sitting there, continuing to pray. And the Lord spoke to me at that time and said, Bill, I want you to be a missionary in Africa. You know, I said, Lord, I think you're talking to the wrong person. Remember, I'm the president coming of General Motors Corporation. Now, all of these other guys, they were there to study for the ministry and whatnot. I said, maybe your direction was for one of them. But of course he says, no, I'm speaking to you. So at that point in time, I changed what I was doing. I didn't just stop those classes in business at the time. I finished them for that term. But then the next term, things began to change. I studied Bible. I studied missions. Still knowing that's what God wanted me to do. But yet in my mind, there was still a small amount of doubt. So something that was to happen the next summer was that there were some internships, let's call them that, some internships around the world, different places, even some home missions internships. And I made an application. Said, Lord, I'm here. And I want to go to Africa because I think that's where you called me. By that time, there was a representative from our Assemblies of God World Missions that was coming around to the different Bible colleges to offer these things. And I found out that particular year, which was 1980, that the only internship for all of Africa that summer was in the country of Malawi. And I said, I'll take it. However, this representative who was moving around, he was coming to our university, our Bible college, the last one of about 8 or 10 Bible colleges there in the U.S. And there were many other people who had applied for that internship. But wanting to serve God, I said, fine. Lord, if this is not what you want me to do, then I'm willing to do anything. So if you're going to be a leader, you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone at times, or to be willing to say to other leadership, such as the pastor, I'm willing to do whatever it is that needs to be done. There must be a willingness. So I signed up. I made applications for the position in Malawi. But also I said I'll do other things, and even some of them were U.S. missions. Now, 1980 is a few years ago. It's almost 40 years ago now. Everything didn't operate the same then as it does now. How many of you know email was not invented in 1980? There was no internet back then. How did we communicate? Maybe by telephone, if there was a telephone that was working, but we wrote letters. We put them in the post, and they were mailed. So after this guy had left, he went back. I don't know all the process, I don't know what's happened. But a few weeks later, in the post, there at that Bible college where I was going to, I received a letter of my appointment to wherever it was going to be. As I read the letter, I expected it to say, we are going to send you to some place in the USA to serve in some position, which I was doing. But when I began to read it, it says, you have been selected to go to the country of Malawi to serve God there for this summer internship. It was a confirmation by God that what He spoke to me was what He wanted me to do. But yet, He wanted me to be willing and be subjective to my leaders who would help position me where they wanted me. So, in God's mind, I'm sure He never expected me. He knew that I was not going to be going to Alaska or somewhere in the USA. He always knew that I was going to go to Malawi. But He wanted me to be willing, to be humble enough to say, wherever I'm needed, that's where I'm willing to serve. So that began my missionary service. I was there for, it was only about 6 weeks. At the end of it, I came actually for my very first, well actually that was my second time. Because on the way to Malawi, There were no direct flights or anything, so I remember I landed at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Jerry Spain picked me up. You know Jerry Spain, a lot of you know him or who he is. He picked me up. We went to school at the old East Campus that Sunday morning. The next day I got on an airplane and flew to Malawi. Then on the way back through, we stopped and went to a Brackenhurst Conference Center at Muru, and I spent about a week there. And so everything began to develop and began to fall in place for what God wanted me to do. One of the requirements that we have in time for different appointments is that you must pastor. So after I finished Bible school, I pastored for about 2 years. I was an associate pastor as well for about 4 years. And then afterwards, making my application and then coming back. Was first approved as a missionary in 1987, and then began to go where God had called me to, and that was back to the country of Malawi. We spent a number of years there. I was basically doing simple church planting, evangelism. We would go into different areas, and for a short time we would have a crusade, and then there would be a church that would be planted. And over those first 4 years when we were in Malawi, we started about 90 churches in that particular time, and God helped us. Hallelujah. It was from there that it was discovered that I had a skin issue, a skin problem. Basically, I have to this day, I have a problem of pre-cancer conditions called solar keratosis. And if I'm out in the sun too long and not protected properly, then I can develop a cancer on my skin. And so I take precautions. But because of that, I was basically ordered to leave that country and to go somewhere where I could get more treatments on a regular basis. So I moved to South Africa, began to work as an assistant, a helper to our area director there, and worked in that. And it was that time they asked me if I would begin to work with Africa Tabernacle Evangelism. So we began to build churches across Southern Africa specifically, and that developed into other things. And then in 2003, I was asked to become the director of Africa Tabernacle Evangelism, and have been serving there since that time. What I'm trying to tell you today, several things, is there must be willingness, there must be a humility, there must be an openness to what God is saying, and not just our agenda, but there must be the agenda that God has in progress and then planned for you. So you have to listen to what God is saying, so that's another key point. Listen to what God has to tell you. And He will give you direction. It may not always be as direct as it was for me at that particular time, because I can tell you the time that God spoke to me, it was very clear to me. It was not an audible voice, but it was a very clear voice to me in what He wanted me to do. And as I began to follow Him, He continued to direct me, but it's not every time that you hear a voice from God. And it's oftentimes that you will, so to speak, work your way up. Because one of the key ingredients in being a leader is you first, listen to me now, you first must be a good follower.
That's good.
You must first be a good follower, because you will never be a good leader until you know how to follow. That's why we talk about so many times these days, we talk about servant leadership.
Yes, yes.
I haven't recently heard anyone speak about dictator leadership. Most of us don't like that. But unfortunately, that's what we find so many times. And you will have people who can order people around. And I was going to get into the politics of my country for a moment, but I think I won't do that. I don't want to talk about how Trump orders people around. But I will tell you, if you're going to be a leader, you must be willing to be a follower first. And then as people see that you're willing to be that servant leader, if you're willing to give to other people so that you can lead, that will be appreciated, and people will then follow you. Are you with me, somebody?
Yes.
You must be willing. In fact, to this day, one of the goals that I have in mind, that I always try to live by, is don't dictate to people what they must do. Now, a leader, at times, must make decisions and make hard decisions. But that doesn't mean that's how you have to be, or that doesn't mean that has to be the attitude when you're even making a hard decision. Okay? Attitude is the key to being a good leader. Even though you'll have your troubled times, Even though there will be times when it will not be easy. When your attitude could turn bad, it's important that when you're leading people that your attitude must be correct. Okay? Is that fair? Your attitude must be correct. Not, I am the person with power, but that I am the person who will serve you. We just completed an event in August where we had our missionaries from all around the world who joined for us for General Council and a meeting immediately after that in the USA. So not all could attend, but most were there. And part of the program at that time was this. Each region of the world would break away and have their own time together. Some of the time we were there as all missionaries from the U.S. Assemblies of God. But other times it was just, for example, Africa meeting. And so we had our breakout time as our Africa meeting proceeded. And there was a time during that when we wanted to affirm one another in some way. And so we had some little stickers that we had, and you could go to someone, you could say something good about them, and then you could put the sticker on them so that they could see that they had been affirmed, or you could put it on their paper, something like that. And as we were moving about as the leadership, because since I was named the director of Africa Tabernacle Evangelism, later I was named the director of Africa Harvest Ministries, which is a consortium of ministries. And then about 5 years ago, I was put as what's called a strategic leader. This is the executive committee, so to speak, of our missions here in Africa. So there's about 4 area directors and 4 we strategic leaders, along with Greg Beggs, who's our regional director, who make up the executive committee. And so about 5 years ago, I was put on that. And then at this meeting, the area, or the regional director and the executive leaders, the leadership team, was participating, but not so much. We just was standing so that we could let the other people do things. We weren't looking for accolades or compliments ourselves. We were standing off to the side. And there were about 3 or 4 people during that time that came to me, even though I was trying not to participate. Because, you know, it's easy to go to your leader and say, oh, you're a good man, you're doing this, you're doing that. And so we didn't want that. It was for everyone who's in the field. But yet, as I was standing in that corner of that room, back there at the back, I had some people come to me and said, Bill, I want to compliment you. I want to affirm you that when we became missionaries, you were the one who welcomed us in so much. You were the ones who made us feel like we're part of a family. You're the one who helped affirm us at that time, and we want to thank you. I didn't even know that I'd already done that. Because as a leader, you must do that type of thing to everyone. Okay? Not intentionally. Not saying, okay, my brother, I want you to know that I'm coming to you to affirm you, to say you're a wonderful brother. No, but stand up. How are you today, my friend? God bless you. Let me give you a hug. Let me tell you that we're so happy to have you here. It's that type of a thing. But not just setting someone out. It's to welcome everyone. Not just to shake their hands. Not just to do certain things that you might wonder, is it genuine? It's just to have a welcoming attitude. A receiving attitude. So that people feel a part of. And even as we break that down to a church, a local church, the thing that we want to do as leaders, we want to show, we want to be an example to others that they would welcome people into this place. Not just so they feel welcome. Because you see, everything that we do is about something. Getting this local church built is an important thing. You've built this nice facility, you're building another one physically. but we're trying to build up the kingdom of God. We're trying to bring people to know Jesus. We talk about building tabernacles. We've done about 3,500 of those across the continent. And that is so wonderful. But you know what? It's not about the building. You know, it's not about the building. This is a structure, and it's a wonderful structure. But do you think this metal up here, is this roofing sheet, are they going to bring someone to Jesus? No, because what happens inside here, the preaching of the word, the welcoming, people repenting of their sins and coming to know Jesus and being filled with the Holy Spirit and being healed and all of these things, this is what it's all about. And that's what leadership is all about, is setting the example to others and bringing them so that ultimately people will come to Jesus, come to know Him as their personal Lord and Savior. You see, God took a young boy who would hide behind the dress of his mother, who had nothing planned for his life as a young boy. Today, I could have been doing anything in America. I could have been a builder. I could have been a driver. I could have been anything whatsoever it was. And there's nothing at all wrong with those. Don't misunderstand. But if we will be an example, even starting with our children, our families, that's where it starts. My father didn't have a wonderful job. But he showed me, sometimes he told me, but most of the time he showed me what it was to serve Jesus and to love Jesus. My father, he would sing in the choir. He would usher. If there was a work day at the church where they needed painting, my father was there. My mother as well. But my father specifically. If there was a time, even when I was not being such a nice boy in church, if he was up singing in the choir, and I was doing some nonsense there in the chair, he would look at me. Hallelujah. I knew what it meant. It didn't just mean to be nice. It meant that when he walked down from up here, he took me by the arm, and we went out that back door. And certain disciplinary actions took place. So it has to start with your family. You have to show them you love them. Even though that I might be disciplined, I knew, even as a child, I knew my father loved me. I knew my father cared for me. Because you see, what did he do? He put me as a very important part of his life.
Sure.
As a leader, let me just challenge you and caution you at the same time. Don't let your duties as a leader separate you from your family. Don't let ministry become more important than a ministry to your family. Even though we didn't have much money. I remember when I was growing up, almost every year, usually during the summertime there, my family would go on a holiday. We didn't stay in hotels. I never remember staying in a hotel as a young kid. But we would go somewhere, maybe into the forest or somewhere. We would camp. Maybe we would take a fishing pole and try to catch some fish in a lake or a stream. But we did things together as a family. It was a great bonding time. Now I will tell you, when we went on holiday, we didn't forget God and we didn't forget church. Because we would find a local church. Okay? Even if we're in the bush somewhere, there is always a place to worship God. So we would always be there. My father set the godly example. He didn't put other things in front of us, but he taught us and he trained us how it was to serve God. So, as a parent, if you're a parent, then train your family. Train your children. Don't let them say, oh, or don't, when you come in from work one day, if you're having a prayer meeting at night or whatsoever you may have here, you come in from work and say, oh, I'm a bit too tired. I don't really have time for God. You know what? That transfers to your children.
Yes.
Did you hear what I'm saying? Your actions will transfer to your children. They will transfer to your family. Don't let negative actions transfer to your family. Let them know that God is first, of course. Others are next. And yourself can be the last. You know, we do things for our children, so we have to put ourselves last a lot of times.
Sure.
But serve Jesus. Serve others. Serve yourself. Do you know what the acronym I just talked about is? Jesus, others, yourself. J-O-Y.
Oh, God.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
When you follow that simple example, there will be joy.
That's good.
So these are just a few of the experiential things that I've had in my life. That as I started as a small kid, shy behind my mother's goat, God began to develop me. He began to lead me. And today, though I hate titles, I hate titles. I abhor titles. I see the function where God has placed me. And today, I am where I am because I serve God. Father, we thank you for your love to us. We thank you that you have called each of us for such a time as this. We thank you that you called us to be leaders. And that as you have called us, you will also empower us, you will guide us, you will direct us. So we ask you, Lord, that as we lead, you will continue to give us direction. You will continue to help us to be good followers, while at the same time being good leaders. Help us truly to be servants of you and servants of those that you called us to lead, so that ultimately we can bring people to you, so that they will be saved, so that they will be filled, and so that they will have a place in heaven. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Hallelujah. Well, I want to maybe take like 5 or so minutes and maybe ask Reverend Bill to respond to some few questions, especially on leadership.
But don't make them too hard.
So,
I don't know whether you are seated there and you listen to Reverend Bill. And we are actually privileged to have you, Bill, the years that we have served, particularly in Africa, and as a parent, you know, as a husband, we are so much involved in the ministry. And maybe you are seated there, and I want to give you, maybe if you are there, you have a question before I ask maybe one or two questions. You have anyone, or let me ask the first one, and if you have a question, I will then actually continue. Now, maybe the first question, probably the first question, maybe Bill, I'm looking at you as a mentor. Yeah. I am younger than you.
Not by much. Okay, you're a lot younger. I'm a very old man.
The experience, how do you balance ministry and the family? That you are effective in the family and also in the ministry. What would you maybe say are key areas that?
I think first off, you have to be deliberate. Okay? You can't just say, okay, I'll give time to the family this week. You have to be deliberate, and sometimes you may have to say, during this specific period, I'm going to do nothing except be with the family. If the kid, for example, has an activity, then maybe something at school or whatsoever, you can't just suddenly allow something to overtake that and say, oh, sorry, I'll do it next time. If you make a promise for a time, be very deliberate that you do it and that you don't let something become, so to speak, an emergency. More than that. Because what that simply does, that tells your kid, your wife, whosoever, you're not as important as this thing. And you never want to show them that they're unimportant. So take very deliberate times to do things with them. It may even be, I know some people who say, every Thursday night, for example, we're going to go out, we're going to have some hamburger, or we're going to go have something here at a restaurant or whatsoever. I don't do that myself. But some people do that. They have very specific times that are regular and ongoing. Because of my travel schedule, and I can't just say it's every week that I do this. But for an example, when I'm going back to the U.S. now, my grandson, okay, not just my wife or my child, but my grandson, he plays football. He's only 5 years, but they have some games they play. And if I'm anywhere around and not traveling, I'm going to be there with him. If I'm around, okay? Now it's a little different, I understand, because I do have to travel, and I travel in periods of time, in blocks of time. But when I'm there, I'm going to be with him. So be deliberate in what you do.
Amen. Any question? Just one question, then I'll pose one more question, and then you edit the first session. Simon?
Thank you. I'm Simon. Maybe
Briefly, and then to the point.
I'm Simon. Maybe when you are a young man, you make that decision now. I will not pursue my desires, the desires that you had. You want to go into ministry. When or how did you know now this is the time? Because I've had a similar challenge where you don't know when or how should I go about. How did you go about it?
There wasn't much of a process. Because when God spoke, that's when I responded. Okay, first off, I responded in my spirit. And it said, that's the way it is. Now, because of my activities at the time, being in a term of school, you don't just stop in the middle of that. But immediately when you can change something, and even when I began to select the classes for my next term, which was early, I did that even soon after that. So that when I could actually take the physical action, that's what I did. So I didn't delay. When God speaks to you, it's best to take the action in. Because I see people, in fact I've heard it, specifically in regard to missionaries. Because I preach in a lot of churches in America. And I'll have some old people come up to me, usually it's a lady, but sometimes it could be a man. They'll come to me and say, you know, when I was 19 years old, or whatsoever, God spoke to me that I was to be a missionary. And I let things happen. You know, I had just bought a new car, so I had to keep working to make the payments on that car. Or I fell in love with a boy, and I married him, but he didn't have the same call. Or whatsoever. There's so many examples. And even though my call was still there, I never fulfilled the call. And so I have lived in regret up to now. Never live a life of regrets because you failed to follow God.
Amen.
If you do, you'll be a horribly miserable person. And you never want that. Because no matter whether you become a director of a company, or a director in missions, or a director in the church, only if you're doing what God wants you to do will you truly be satisfied. So take the steps as quickly as is possible. And don't let the cow fall in the ditch and you have to go pull the cow out. You know, there's biblical basis for what I'm saying. You know, I married a woman. I did this, I did that. And it deterred them from their song that we sang earlier, destiny that God has for us. So if you delay, there's something called the law of diminishing returns. The more you do something, or the less you do something, whichever way it is for you, then it becomes your new normal. You don't want the opposite of what you want, or what God wants for you to become your normal. Okay? Because if you become a salesman at a furniture showroom floor, you become that when you know you're supposed to be a pastor. Then after a little while, oh, it's easier to be the salesman. I don't think I really had a call. You know, on and on and on. And so it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, what God wants you. So don't delay. Take immediate action. That's what I would say.
Amen. Maybe the last one, the bill. We have some people here who may not actually go into the full-time ministry. They have their own professional jobs,
Sure.
and yet they want to serve the Lord.
Right.
What word of encouragement can you give?
I would say be the best church member you can be. In fact, the reason why I say that was because when I was planning to be the president of General Motors, I still had a goal in mind. I said, I'm going to be the best church member a pastor can have. I said, I'm going to serve, I'm going to work in the church, I'm going to do all of these things, which is very legitimate. I'm smart enough to know this, that if every one of us were called to be in full-time ministry, there would be too many churches and not enough members. Okay? That's practical, isn't it? That's simple practical. So wherever God has called you, God doesn't call everybody to be in full-time ministry. I know that. My father was not called to be in full-time ministry. Not paid full-time ministry. Every one of us are in ministry all the time. Okay? Sure. Every one of us are. My mother, she was a school teacher, like a headmaster of a school. She was not called to be the pastor of a church. But every time that she could come in contact with those children, that she was the headmaster over them. Even though she may, because of certain things, not be able to preach to them, she could exemplify a godly Christian woman.
Wow.
You could be a godly Christian businessman. You could be a godly Christian lawyer or doctor or teacher or whatever it is. And sometimes there's a saying, you're the only Bible some people read. You're the only Bible some people read. I have to tell you one story. Very quickly. As I was associate pastor at one church before I came into doing full-time missions, I was directing a daycare, a creche, whatever you want to call it, taking primary for small children. And we had, it was open to anyone. They had to pay, but it was open to anyone to be our customer. And so there were plenty of the people who came there, the children, who were not part of the church. They were just people from the community. And of course, because this was part of a church, then we're going to teach Bible stories, scriptures, whatsoever. We're going to do that. And we had one teacher there especially, who was a good, strong Christian lady, attended our church, and she would take care of these children and do whatsoever. One little boy, his name was Nathan. Nathan was ornery. In fact, he may have sometimes been mean. But this lady loved him and cared for him. His mother was a single lady. The father was no longer there. And one day, this lady, who was a teacher, she was in the grocery store, the supermarket. And Nathan was there also with his mother. And just at the end of one of these aisles, this teacher was there. Nathan spotted her from down at this end. He grabbed a hold of his mother and said, "Look, Mama, there goes Jesus. There goes Jesus. That's Jesus right there."
Wow.
As a small child.
Wow.
Wherever you're at,
Amen.
whatever you're doing, you can be Jesus.